While the term prejudice provokes emotional reactions in news headlines, like the term impeachment, in a court of law, these terms are referred to as legal terms of art, or expressions or phrases that have a defined meaning when used in a particular context or knowledge environment, such as the patenting process, pharmaceuticals, computers, etc. And while when a court speaks of something that would constitute prejudice during a proceeding, the meaning is very similar to the common usage. Because the court is indicating that something would present a bias that would adversely affect an outcome, when a case is dismissed with or without prejudice, the term prejudice defines whether a plaintiff will have an opportunity to raise those allegations ever again, bringing finality and closure to the actions, closing the door, permanently, which suggests a very different connotation from the normal usage for the term prejudice. And, despite continuing allegations of lack of diversity amongst its secret members, as well as accusations of discrimination in their selection of award nominees, approximately 18.1 million viewers worldwide had watched the broadcast of the 95th Annual Academy of Motion Picture and Arts Awards, which had captured the record for the largest television audience in the last 3 years, and, in what had been a declining viewership audience, the folks sponsoring the Oscars decided in 2023 to go with a sure thing, as the American broadcast company, ABC Television Network, had announced last November that late-night talk show television host and comedian Jimmy Kimmel, the talent upon whom they had relied in 2017 and 2018, would be returning for his third time to host the Gala Awards show. In Kimmel, executives at the Motion Picture Academy had placed their trust in a comedic veteran who they were confident was adept at delivering both sharp political barbs and broadly silly shtick, and had proven he could handle the pressure and unpredictability of the Oscars, when he had been tested by the fires during his first Oscar Awards show, when Gala event took an unexpected turn, going spectacularly off the tracks in its final moments when La La Land was mistakenly named Best Picture, instead of the actual winner, Moonlight. But, kept more secret than the winners of the gold-plated statues when the Oscars aired on March 12 was the fact that Kimmel had been named as the lead defendant in a civil racketeering lawsuit in the federal court in Richmond, an action filed in May 2022, and kept under wraps even as now that action is sitting at the Fourth Circuit of Appeals in Richmond and poised to be presented to the U.S. Supreme Court. Dating long before the contest between Al Gore and George W. Bush that had been so razor-thin close that the election results would turn on counting of Chads in states like Florida and a final decision by the U.S. Congress, at least as far back as the presidential election during the civil unrest of 1968, a year that would find the Tet Offensive in the conflict in Southeast Asia, the assassination of Democratic candidate Robert F. Kennedy, in Los Angeles at the Ambassador Hotel after his victory in the California primaries, and the martyrdom of civil rights leader Reverend Martin Luther King, Jr., on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel in Memphis. There had been raised allegations that the trusted voice of Walter Cronkite at the Columbia Broadcast System, CBS television network, had worked to discredit and undermine the nomination for then-President Lyndon Baines Johnson, who had succeeded John F. Kennedy after his assassination in Dallas, and some have advanced allegations regarding the collusion of the press after the assassination of Reverend King, as provocative headlines stirred unrest that capitulated in riots and looting across the nation, even in the nation's capital, a collusion of silence about which even Reverend King had alluded almost prophetically in his last public address, talking about the unrest he had witnessed in Memphis during the strike of the sanitation workers, and saying that the press never got around to that. And, in a recent filing in the current racketeering action, attempting to dismiss, with prejudice, a civil racketeering case then on its second amended complaint, attorneys for Motha Night had attempted to minimize allegations brought against several major broadcast companies, asserting that what the trial court inaccurately described as a 90-page prolix complaint, even though it contained only 21 pages, as containing threadbare recitals of the elements of a cause of action, supported by mere conclusory statements, which, these attorneys argued, do not suffice, adopting a defense strategy to avoid naming any specific allegations, to elect a right to remain silent regarding connection to what, in a racketeering suit, are all predicate offenses that must be established beyond a reasonable doubt. Because they must be serious offenses, most often felonies, chargeable under state and or federal law. Attorneys for Motha Night had filed their motion to dismiss, with prejudice, attempting to sever themselves from the action against Jimmy Kimmel, the Jimmy Kimmel Live show, an American broadcast company, after having taken on the role of a good Samaritan, with no stake in a motion brought to obtain a mandatory default judgment from the court, under Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 55 against the Sinclair Broadcast Group and its subsidiary affiliate, ABC's Washington affiliate, WJLA, an action that had undermined their assertion in their motion to dismiss, with prejudice, arguing that it is implausible that Motha Night, a CBS affiliate, would conspire with the ABC network and its main late-night personality on anything. And yet, of record, just the simple fact that not even network rivalries between Jimmy Kimmel, Seth Meyers and Stephen Colbert have found a competitive incentive from Kimmel's competitors to have even made a joke about his current status as a racketeering defendant, accused of serious felony offenses, a conspiracy of silence, working with Kimmel's attempts to avoid incrimination, and in this apparently top-secret case, there is probably good reason why the comedian who had made jokes about Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, after she had reported him to the Capitol Police, and who had made jokes about former President Trump's indictment, casting barbs about his right to remain silent, might want to adopt a legal strategy of not saying anything that can and will be held against him in court, where he would have a right to an attorney, appointed by the court, if he could not afford one. So, stay tuned for more developments in this novel and exciting political contest in Virginia's 3rd House District, as Major Webb takes the whip to Virginia Democratic Caucus House Majority Whip Alfonso Lopez, and in November, remember, Webb for law and order, Lopez against law and order.
This message was approved by Major Mike Webb. Honest.